The man kicks us off every day on NBC Sports on Peacock with PFT Live, and his book Playmakers still available where all books are acquired. The author and creator of Pro Football Talk, Mike Florio, back here on the program. How you doing, Mike?
Rich, I'm doing great, buddy. How are you?
I am fine. You were, as I texted you this morning when I asked if you were free, and you were kindly free and willing to call in. I said, you know what? You're the first person I thought of. What a dichotomy on Tuesday that Deshaun Watson appears for the first time since March 25th. He's standing in front of the old Browns step and repeat. He's doing what all quarterbacks do at mandatory minicamps, which is make himself available for questioning. This one, however, as we all know, is completely different. He did his best to, if you will, move on, turn a page, keep things moving forward. And then on the same day, Charles Robinson, our colleague from Yahoo, acquires a 230-page deposition taken by the attorney for all of the civil lawsuit folks who are suing Deshaun Watson. And there is so much in there. The 230-page deposition was an interview conducted by Busby of a member of the Houston Police Detective Department that was looking into Deshaun Watson. I will now be quiet and ask you what you make of all this.
Well,
Mike.
I want to go back to yesterday. Right about this time, Deshaun Watson meets with reporters, as you mentioned, first time since March 25. I don't think he was required to do it, and he's definitely not required to answer substantive questions about these cases. I think it would have been better for him if he simply would have said, on the advice of my lawyers, because there are cases pending, I have been told to not say anything about this. That's better than reciting the same old talking points, and we know that they're talking points. You can see as he's delivering it, he is striving to remember exactly what he's supposed to say. I never assaulted anyone, never harassed anyone. I never did anything that I wasn't supposed to do. And I'm innocent of all these claims. And they asked him about settling the case. I want to just clear my name. I want to focus on clearing my name. Well, if that's the case, he should embrace the possibility of a paid leave so he can focus on getting these cases tried and winning them one after another, after another, after another, if he's that determined that he's innocent of all of these civil charges. So I just don't know what was gained. And it's felt like, and really the first domino was the HBO Real Sports feature that has begun this 3 weeks and 1 day of one bad development after another. Some people who previously hadn't sued are now suing, and more could come out of the woodwork. That was the Tony Busby statement from yesterday. Many have sued. Many others haven't yet. I think he had about 9 more months to wait and see until the statutes of limitations run on these claims, assuming that once he was sued the first time, he decided no more of these Instagram private massages. I'm done as of March 15, 2021. So you got until March 15 of 2023 to sweat out the possibility of more cases, and it sounds like there will be more. I just think it's been a very bad 22 days for Deshaun Watson, for the Browns, and I don't see it getting any better, especially if more lawsuits being filed will result in more of these women deciding that they are going to stand up and do what they think they need to do as well to get their specific form of justice.
So what was in this 230-page deposition that again Charles Robinson of Yahoo acquired? It was the interview of a police detective in Houston that was looking into 10 of the cases, I guess.
Yeah, she was one of the detectives on the case, and Rich, she testified she believed Deshaun Watson committed multiple crimes. She didn't testify to the grand jury that took up 9 of the complaints. She did testify to the Brazoria County grand jury that took up the 1. It was an incident that didn't happen in Harris County. There was no indictment in that one either. We still don't know, and we never will know specifically why there was no indictment, because there's so much power, there's so much discretion and latitude that a prosecutor has in trying to seek an indictment or not seek an indictment. My big takeaway from the New York Times article, the excellent item from Jenny Vrentas last week, was maybe the prosecutor just didn't want to deal with a dream team led by Rusty Hardin for 2 years, going through acquittal after acquittal after acquittal, because reasonable doubt is everywhere in cases like this. So this detective, now a witness, now called to testify, at least for discovery purposes in the civil cases, believed that crimes were committed. And there are all sorts of things that came up, some different conceptual ideas. One of the big things that Rusty Hardin and the rest of the legal team representing Watson is pushing is this notion of a presumption of innocence that the accused is entitled to in the investigative phase, and that just bastardizes the entire concept of presumption of innocence. That applies once you're charged and facing trial. That doesn't apply during the investigation. If every cop's walking around with a presumption of innocence, nobody's ever getting charged with anything. Somebody walks in and makes an accusation, sorry, we're presuming he's innocent. You better have something more than your story. Well, sometimes all you have is your story. When it's two people in a room at Deshaun Watson's behest, no witnesses, no one else there. The person who believes something happened that shouldn't happen goes in and tells the police, this is what happened. And if the people who are trained and experienced in spotting credibility or lack thereof think it's a credible story, you go forward. And if the defendant isn't going to cooperate, what do? Do you drop it? Or do you take it to a grand jury and see what the grand jury does? So I don't understand that argument. I think it's disingenuous. But I think this is just part of the broader effort by Rusty Hardin to, on behalf of Deshaun Watson, find a silver bullet that ultimately prevents him not just from losing these cases, but from getting suspended by the NFL. I can't imagine at this point how he doesn't get suspended. And I'm back in the camp where I think he should just be put on paid leave until these cases are over.
Well, I don't know how this is going to play out, Mike. Obviously, none of us do, and I don't know really what to make of all of this. Where, let's put it this way: I didn't see the current state of affairs playing out. I always thought, maybe I'm just naive, that if Watson was going to play in the NFL after last year's debacle, really is what it was, and that it would all be handled and settled and done, and that would be done in a rearview mirror, and we would all have to sit here and wonder, what was that all about, and is he somebody worthy of rooting for? Now he's playing. He's been bestowed the greatest contract in the history of player contracts the NFL's ever seen. And this is an open sore that daily can be opened even wider every single day, right? I mean, this document is here. How many more depositions are yet to be taken or have been taken or is going to be put out there? How is this sustainable in any way, shape, or form for a player to be out there every day?
Rich, you're absolutely right. And look, I think the Browns went into this with a very simple plan. We're going to take some short-term hits, PR. We're not going to have him available for some period of time. Long-term, we have a franchise quarterback for the next 10 years. At some point, this is going to be no different than it was for Ben Roethlisberger, who got suspended 6 games, reduced to 4. He had 2 complaints against him. They went to the Super Bowl that year that he served the suspension. Within a year or two, it was completely forgotten, like it had never even happened. And by the time he retires, you're an ass if you mention it. That's how deeply it faded into the rearview mirror. Well, that's not happening. It's getting worse, not better. He says he wants to clear his name. I don't think his name is ever getting cleared. Even if he goes 26 for 26 or 30 for 30 or more, as the case may be, there's too much out there. It's lingered too long, and it's spreading. And I think that's where the Browns miscalculated. I think you're right on the money on this. There are too many of these, and that's what I keep coming back to, Rich. They want to accuse Tony Busby, who represents all of these plaintiffs, of being basically the Pied Piper, the ringleader, who's pulling together a bunch of meritless, if not frivolous, claims and holding it together for his own personal fame and notoriety and a big payday, ultimately a third of every dollar that changes hands. But here's the practical reality. Last October, November timeframe, when the Dolphins were going to trade for Watson, they offered each of these 22 plaintiffs at the time $100,000. 18 of them said, yes, I'll take it. 4 held out. Watson said, it's all or nothing. Well, let's think about this. If this really is Tony Busby, charlatan, holding together 24 and counting frivolous lawsuits, how is there not any evidence being developed of these folks being indignant, impatient? I want my money.
Right.
I thought all I had to do was sign this paper and I'm going to get my money. Where's my money? You don't have any of that. Nobody is stepping out of line. Nobody is talking out of school. That's the kind of evidence that would be very persuasive to cut against the idea that we can't disregard the stories from 26 different people. And until I see something like that, in my mind, there are too many of these accusations for there not to be fire at the bottom of all that smoke.
And then he does such a terrible job of explaining himself, too, Mike. I mean, his quote yesterday when asked about regrets, did he regret saying in the press conference on March 25th that there were, that he didn't disrespect any of the women, right? And he basically said that he does have regrets as far as the impact that it's had on the community and people outside of myself. And then he went on eventually to talk about who that includes. And he says that includes males, females, everyone across the world. What does that mean? Right? Well, I mean, so again, the reason why I keep bringing this up is because I've never seen anything like it in the 20 years that I've covered this. And where does it go? Where does it go? Right? I mean, how does he take the field in week one without something happening? Right? The league is good. Something's going to happen between now and week one of some sort. Would you agree?
Oh, it has to.
Okay.
It has to. The only question is it an unpaid suspension that goes through the three-step process where the league proposes the suspension, the disciplinary officer makes a decision on whether and to what extent there'll be discipline, and then the commissioner has final say over an appeal if the outcome of the disciplinary officer's proceeding is any discipline at all. The only way the commissioner's appeal jurisdiction is short-circuited is if the finding by retired Judge Sue L. Robinson is no discipline at all. So that's one path. The other path is to put paid leave back on the table. And I know in late March the commissioner said, I probably wouldn't put him on the commissioner exempt list, put him on paid leave. I would just suspend him at this point. Well, that was 3 months ago. A lot's happened since then.
Right.
And I've asked the league multiple times, does what the commissioner said at the press conference at the league meetings in Florida still stand? And they say no comment, and I don't know how to interpret that. But it would be very easy to say he said what he said, and there's no reason for what he said to not still apply. But I think paid leave makes the most sense because, Rich, what do you do if you're the league? Do you suspend him X number of games and then all of this other evidence comes out and there's more lawsuits and it looks like you were too lenient on him? Do you do a preliminary suspension based on what we know now and you hold the door open for more later? But then it still continues to hover over the NFL. They don't want that. The whole reason for paid leave, they don't want during the broadcast of the NFL games there to be conversation about this kind of stuff. They want these guys who have been involved in incidents that have resulted in serious allegations to be out of sight and out of mind and out of the mouths of the people who are broadcasting the games. So paid leave makes the most sense by far, especially since, Rich, I believe this. You put them on paid leave, all of a sudden those cases move towards settlement. Because he's going to understand the only way I'm going to play is to get these behind me, so he's going to embark on the process of getting them behind him, although it's probably going to be a lot more expensive than it would have been last October.
Well, he's got the cash. He's got the Haslam dollars, that's for sure. Mike Florio here on the Rich Eisen Show. One other item for you. I thought of you right away. Late last week, a report out of South Florida, the South Florida Sun-Sentinel, Dave Hyde, says that the Dolphins had a 5-year deal all ready to give to Sean Payton at $20 million a year. Albert Breer, our friend from Sports Illustrated, said actually it was 100 over 4. And I thought of you because you've been banging the drum quite a bit about the Brady, Sean Payton package deal to Miami. Are we, certainly since Brady was asked about it at his press availability last week and about any contact with Miami, and he didn't deny it. He said, I talked to a lot of people. So what do you make of all of this right now?
I wasn't surprised by the reporting, Rich, because I can tell you with 100% certainty, I'm not even going to leave any wiggle room in here based upon the people I've talked to over the past 3 months plus. It was a done deal. And this is how the sausage gets made in the NFL. It's all pre-made, and then the process plays out, right? The deals are in place. Everything's done. And then the dominoes are going to fall in a very orchestrated way. Week of the Super Bowl, Tom Brady is announced as a minority owner of the Dolphins. Thereafter, Sean Payton is acquired by the Dolphins to culminate their coaching search. Trade with the Saints. First-round pick goes to the Saints. Sean Payton goes to the Dolphins. At some point thereafter, after the Buccaneers have found a quarterback to replace Tom Brady decides he's not just going to partially own the Dolphins, he's going to play for the Dolphins. That was all in place. It was all happening. Bryan Flores files his lawsuit February 1, the same day Tom Brady announced his retirement, and the plug gets pulled. But it was happening. And the league has to be nervous about this story because it shows that multiple rules and policies get disregarded all the time, whether it's tampering, whether it's the Rooney Rule. You're going to make your decisions and come up with your plan, and then everything else is done for show to create the impression that there was compliance with these rules. And look, hey, Rich, we speculated yesterday on why ESPN and NFL Network didn't jump on this thing. It's very difficult for the league-owned network. And I know I'm talking to a guy who is one of the primary faces and voices of the league-owned network, but let's face it. You can't have Ian Rappaport on NFL Network saying, hey, by the way, the Saints and the Dolphins had a deal that violates, I don't know, 6 or 7 different policies, and the only reason it didn't happen is because Bryan Flores filed a lawsuit against the league, and it wouldn't be good for the league's defense of that lawsuit if they went forward with it. It's probably not very good for the league's defense of the lawsuit for me to be even talking about it.
Well, I mean, how did Flores' lawsuit blew it up because they couldn't hire another coach right away? Is that like why would Flores' lawsuit, like what is the connective tissue as to Flores' lawsuit blowing it up?
I think it was just, boy, we got to press the panic button on this. We can't do this because Flores' lawsuit talks about tampering with a high-profile quarterback who was Brady, obviously. Bruce Beal, the right-hand man to Stephen Ross, is the connection back to Tom Brady. Bruce Beal was going to facilitate the meeting between Brady and Bryan Flores when Stephen Ross wanted Flores to meet with him, and that's in the lawsuit. You've got allegations of racial bias in the lawsuit, so we're going to trade for a prominent white coach and pay him $20 to $25 million a year. Can't do that either. Everything just got rolled up into a ball at that point and thrown aside. It was happening but for that lawsuit. And next level cynicism is Bryan Flores maybe filed that lawsuit when he did to keep it from happening, because I remember thinking, why are you filing the lawsuit before the Texans make their hire and before the Dolphins make their hire? The Texans, I think, would have hired Josh McCown. Makes your case stronger. The Dolphins go forward with this Sean Payton trade, and there's a paper trail that it was all done in advance in violation of the spirit of the Rooney Rule. That makes your case stronger, too. I don't know. Maybe he gave the green light to go ahead and file the lawsuit just to keep Stephen Ross from getting the guys he wanted.
Well, and is it what? Before I let you go, it's in your book, I believe. Sean Payton was going to be the next coach of the Dallas Cowboys as far back as 2019.
Done deal.
But why is Anthony Davis, the basketball player, the star Anthony Davis, involved in this? How does he play into that?
Mickey Loomis was the VP of basketball operations for the Pelicans at the time. Mickey Loomis has been the GM of the Saints for years. The deal was done, all set up ahead of time. You get the ducks in a row ahead of time, and then Jerry Jones fires Jason Garrett. Then Jerry Jones engages in a search for a coach that complies with the letter and the spirit of the Rooney Rule. And then at the end of the day, well, let's just trade for Sean Payton. That was how it was going to play out. But just as they were getting ready to implement the plan, Anthony Davis says, I want out of New Orleans. And Mickey Loomis tells Sean Payton at that point, I can't be the common thread between two of these New Orleans icons leaving. I can't be responsible for that, so we just can't do it. And that ended it in 2019. And that's why everybody's watching the Cowboys now. Going forward, Payton's going to be the hottest name on the coaching carousel next year. And there's already been talk of the Panthers. I think the Cowboys will be in play. And, there's a way that the planets line up where it's a team that needs a quarterback and a coach, and maybe this Brady and Payton thing happens after all somewhere else.
Do I at least get Florio credit for bringing this story up on the Rich Eisen Show, even though I am the face and voice of the NFL Network? Do I at least get some?
You understand where I'm coming from the news gathering standpoint, pushing that story forward, working on that story that potentially creates all sorts of problems for 345. You can't do it. You just can't do it. Well, the news gathering people can't do it.
Well, we'll see. We'll see how if I've got a red light on my voicemail when I hang up from you.
It's funny. I had a phone call yesterday from the main switchboard at 345 Park Avenue. I missed the call. I've never gotten that call before. I have no idea who was on the other end of that call. Because anybody else in the league office who wants to find me has like cell phones and email.
Sure.
I'm still very curious.
I don't know.
Who from 345 maybe the main switchboard was trying to track me down.
Maybe that's why Roger asked me for your phone number. I don't know. check it out. Thanks for the call, Mike.
Good talking to you, buddy.
Okay, there's Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk, right here on the Rich Eisen Show.